Watching news at Prime, let's take you back now to one of our leading stories where the South African National Defence Force has rubbished claims that its troops have surrendered in the conflict-ridden eastern DRC. This follows viral video footage showing a South African soldier waving a white flag. Now, with the South African troops' death toll having risen to 13, there are growing calls for a ceasefire in the region. To help us understand the situation better is retired SANDF Maj-Gen Mlindeni Sibango. Major General, good afternoon to you, and thank you very much for joining us in studio today.
Good afternoon to your good self and the listeners.
Let's start with the death toll that has risen this morning. The Defence Force breaking that news to the nation today. Let's start with that difficult task of informing the families. How do you do that? And looking back to past calamities that have happened, how would families take this? How does the SANDF tell these families what actually happened?
It's quite a tall order for the SANDF to actually listen and witness and hear the news of our calamities in the DRC, given the fact that we were there for peace, first and foremost, not for war. We were there for peace. And our being there is also all about the fact that we want to bring glory in terms of socio-economic development in the region, so that we can also benefit out of that as a continent.
Yeah.
Now, come this would also be a surprising news in any nation that has got that high agenda of glory in Africa. Let me actually sum it like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Major General, there's another retired general who spoke to our channel earlier today.
Yes.
And he was very clear in his assessment of the situation that, first of all, we are a powerful nation on the continent, and therefore our soldiers can never be seen to be surrendering, nor can they withdraw. That would communicate something completely different about our country's military capabilities. I'm trying to paraphrase him. What are your thoughts about the calls that say, bring back our soldiers, we have suffered enough?
I mean, the situation is very dicey, very complex, and it will actually draw a wide range of comments and views from various quarters, be it from your political formations, your intelligentsia, your academics, your individuals. But the nation has actually had some comments on all of those. It's about the pride that one would say that we wouldn't call ourselves to be withdrawing in DRC, but we just have to face reality and be sober enough and call ourselves to review our situation in terms of our military protocols. When you launch or when you prepare, launch an operation and then make a review thereafter of the course of action that you have embarked on, then it will tell you what successes have you made, what failures have you suffered or have you experienced, and what then would be the cause of action you would then have to review in order to sort of better your appreciation process of the situation.
So in those words, I'm going to try and force you to some kind of commitment.
Yes.
Are you of the view that our soldiers should come back, or you agree with the fellow retired general that our soldiers must remain?
Yeah, in that process, I think let us not start there. Let us start by saying, what are our objectives in the DRC? Strategic objective in the DRC first.
Yeah. Okay.
In that
so
case,
if you want to start there.
In that case, I would want to say that you would want to engage with the DRC on a concerted effort to say, this is our strategic partner. In this case, where do we want to play ourselves as a country? Mm-hmm. And in that case, how do we prepare ourselves to support that kind of our strategic national security interest? Then having done that kind of appreciation and analytical view, you would then come up with a concept of operation, which will then support your strategic national interest. And being resourced and in the course of the process of execution, where you sustain this kind of situation, then you will come and then review your appreciation and say, where did we go all wrong? And mitigate that.
So let me ask you that question.
Yes.
Where did things go wrong? As someone who has served or who has led our soldiers in the DRC previously, what do you think went wrong with this deployment?
It actually don't necessarily dates back now. It dates back before in the DRC, because we have been in the DRC since its democratic inception. If I were to call it in 2026,
2006 or
2003, rather,
right.
2006.
Yes.
Their first democratic elections after 40 years of autocratical election by the then, the previous Zaire kind of presidents, Mobutu Sese Seko. Then since then, we were there in terms of their integration, the processes of data capturing, of all the integrated forces in there.
Yeah.
And then we also train them. But you ask yourself, what was the ultimate goal, the end state, strategic end state? You then integrate them, you train them, and then what is it that you want to actually capacitate in terms of capacity building in DRC? It's not all about training, it's all about training and equipping them so that they can measure to any other threat that would be fitting for any country to defend its own country.
All right, General.
Yes.
I don't want us to lose our viewers.
Our view, yes.
When you talk about integration without complicating matters,
yes,
here's my understanding of it.
Yeah.
And it is that there is a Tutsi and Hutu sort of conflict. And that conflict stems from the Rwanda genocide of 1994.
Yes.
Now, the M23,
Yes.
in the main, at its core, it is the Tutsi-led sort of forces that operate in the M23. Am I correct?
For sure.
Then you come to the FDLR.
Yes.
FDLR is the Hutus.
Hutu, yes.
And the Hutus are the people that were accused of conducting or orchestrating the genocide of 1994.
Yes.
And that is why they are not wanted by the Rwandan government. But the FDLR is, for a lack of a better word, is understood to be in bed with the military of the DRC. Is that the source of the conflict, plain and simple?
Correct.
Now, in order to bring these together, there does seem to be a discussion that needs to be had between the leadership, political leadership in Rwanda and the political leadership in the DRC.
Yeah.
They are losing each other, are they not?
That's the crux of the matter. Without going deeper in terms of the era of colonial divide, let us recognize that there is a Tutsi tradition in DRC, particularly in the Kivus. There is a Hutu come after genocide in Rwanda that has actually fled to DRC, that fled to DRC, that posed a challenge to the security of Rwanda.
Yeah.
FDLR. FDLR.
Yes.
Now, which compounds the whole issue. Now, in this case, you have a Rwanda-dominated Tutsi-led government with a Hutu Hutu tribal that has fled to
the DRC.
DRC.
Yes.
That may seemingly pose a threat to the Rwanda Tutsi-led government.
Right.
Now, in that case, now how do these two find each other on that? Which is the bone of contention currently.
Yes.
That actually prompts Rwanda interest in its own security.
Yes.
And on the other side, DRC own interest in the main.
Let's complete the discussion on this point, General. Something else that's mentioned by the retired general that was interviewed on this channel today, who makes the comment that in his scant, or should I say casual assessment of the weaponry, the dress code of the M23 rebels, he seems to have noticed that the kind of weapons they have, they resemble weapons that come from Israel. Even the dress sense. He says he has seen guerrilla fighters. They don't dress like that. Have you made your own assessment of the kind of backing that the M23 is getting? And where would they get? I know that it is not confirmed on the record, and that's why he himself said he was speculating without getting into too much detail. But it does appear that the kind of weaponry they are using seems to suggest that these are weapons that come or may have come from Israel.
Yes.
Do you know of a connection between Rwanda and Israel?
I may not have any connection between Rwanda and Israel. However, that I may have a connection between Rwanda and the Western countries, the Western powers that be.
Specifically, which Western countries?
In which case, that Israel, as a surrogate of Western countries, would be able to be supportive of Rwanda in that case, without mentioning any countries. Now, you are asking me of those weapons. Certainly, I have been following the conflict in the DRC and the weapons that the M23 that we're using, and the origins of such weaponry, which are sophisticated, are actually from Israel.
You know this for a fact now?
Oh, for a fact that I know with my research. Those weapons are actually a sophisticated weapons from Israel, which are used by Rwanda. Obviously, Rwanda, as in backing M23, would then be in a position to provide those actually weaponry to M23.
Very, very, very...
Very complex.
Very complex story. And you start to wonder how the political leadership in the region and even those that are slightly outside of the region, South Africa, for example, which has suffered losses here, how they are going to be able to bring themselves around the table with President Kagame. But as we learned today, the president of South Africa has been in contact with his Rwandan counterpart, and perhaps this is why a ceasefire, it would seem, has been achieved, at least for the time being. General, thank you very much for
Has it been achieved?
I'm saying at least for now, it would appear. I'm not sure, unless you want to tell me otherwise.
No, I would be grateful for that. If it would be achieved parallel to the Nairobi process, peace process, and the Rwanda process, that we would have achieved that kind of a deal, that would actually shows that our soft power approach would be worth employing, which in any effect, if we would have employed it before, we would not have actually realized these kind of results that we are confronted with today.
General, thank you very much.
Thank you very
for
much.
your time. Thank you indeed.